Coming up, the story of an all-time rock classic that has two legendary versions. The original was written by one of rock's most famous poets. It did well, but when it was interpreted a short time later by a guitar virtuoso, the original writer, he went crazy when he heard it. It blew his mind. He freaked out. Loved it so much, he changed the way he played it from that point forward, even though he was the one that created it. He wasn't the only one that freaked out. It's become arguably the greatest cover song ever, and its story is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you used to memorize the liner notes of the albums that you bought when you were a kid or a teenager, or if you still do, you're going to love this channel. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our Music History Daily straight from the artist. Click the bell so you never miss out. And make sure to check out our exclusive content on Patreon by clicking on the link in the description. You can be an honorary producer and help us keep the music alive here. We also have new merch below. Check it out. It's right below the channel here on YouTube. So the song All Along the Watchtower, that was written by Bob Dylan, as most of you know, one of the most influential lyricists in recorded music history. It was transformed into preeminence by Jimi Hendrix, one of the greatest instrumentalists of the rock era. Only a month after the release of his highly acclaimed Blonde on Blonde LP that came out in '66, Bob Dylan had a mysterious motorcycle accident, wrecking his Triumph on a windy road in upstate New York. Now, there are no police records of the accident, no evidence of an ambulance being summoned, no witnesses, even official hospitalization of Dylan, none of those things. The best intel that we have comes from Dylan's late manager, Albert Grossman. He arrived on the scene moments after the incident, apparently. Grossman recounted that the crash happened not long after Dylan had left their residence. Grossman and his wife, Sally, they were in a vehicle following Dylan along the same road when they suddenly rounded a corner and saw the wreckage on the side of the road with his mega famous client lying on the ground. I bet you that was very scary. Although Dylan was writhing and moaning, he didn't look injured. Instead of asking his manager to drive him to the hospital, though, Bob Dylan opted to be taken to a home doctor. His name was Ed Thaler. Many have questioned this entire story. I mean, if he was hurt, why wouldn't he insist on going to a professional doctor at the hospital instead of a general practitioner, located over an hour away? There was conjecture that Bob Dylan staged the accident because he wanted to get away from the media microscope. Not sure if I believe that. Though he had become a huge icon. I mean, the pressure began to take its toll on him. Some felt that Bob Dylan didn't want the responsibility of being the so-called voice of a generation.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me.
And just wanted to lead a normal life. Dylan's former band member Robbie Robertson swears that Bob was in a neck brace, though, for several weeks, and that he indeed had suffered a vertebrae injury. Now, regardless of how serious its injuries were, the misadventure, it rattled Bob Dylan emotionally, and it seemed to be the impetus for a paradigm shift in his music and his lifestyle, for that matter. Although his popularity would grow with the mass audience when he returned to the scene, Bob Dylan's music lacked the apocalyptic gravity and social intensity that perhaps hit its pinnacle with Blonde on Blonde.
They'll stone you and then they'll say good luck.
For an 18-month period that followed that crash, Bob Dylan removed himself from the limelight, recuperating at his home in Woodstock, writing new songs and setting into family life. In fact, talks about it in American Pie as part of that.
The jester on the sidelines in a cab.
During his post-crash hiatus, Dylan wrote and recorded the songs for his Reemergence, the John Wesley Harding album that included his composition All Along the Watchtower.
Among us who feel that life is but a joke.
Dylan has never been one to, go into great detail about the meaning of his songs and actually encourages self-interpretation of his music like a lot of artists. Anyone, though, with a religious background can certainly hear the inspiration that Bob Dylan undoubtedly took from chapter 21 in the book of Isaiah in the King James Bible. Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower, eat, drink, arise, ye princes, and prepare the shield. Dylan's third verse begins with the line, all along the watchtower, princes kept the view.
Along the watchtower, princes kept the view.
Now, another source of inspiration for the writing of All Along the Watchtower was Bob Dylan's fascination with the minimalistic style of the great Ernest Hemingway. Dylan acknowledged Hemingway's influence on his songwriting, along with the literature of Homer, Melville, and others during his acceptance speech for the 2016 Nobel Prize in Literature. That was really cool when that happened.
Moby Dick, all quiet on the Western Front and the Odyssey.
In Along the Watchtower, you get a good example of Dylan's admiration of Hemingway's iceberg theory, which leaves the deeper meaning of a story hidden below the surface. It'd be easy to surmise that All Along the Watchtower is all about changing the establishment, but that explanation would be a little too simple, I think. Not nearly as interesting. Dylan's story includes two polar opposite protagonists. There's the Joker and the thief, who weave in and out of the song, never divulging their true symbolism, but leaving us to decide which of the characters are most relevant to our lives.
Some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief.
It's fun to hear how people have speculated on the identity of both the Joker and the thief. Some believe the Joker is Jesus Christ and the thief is Satan. Some are convinced that both represent the duality of Dylan himself, while others say that Dylan is the Joker and Elvis is the thief. Again, fun to speculate. What's your interpretation? Let us know in the comments. It'd be fun discussion. Like Hemingway, Dylan's writing leaves us with more questions than answers, but the spiritual exploration and mystery his lyrics really evoke make his songs endlessly stimulating and so thought-provoking.
Let other people get your kicks for you.
And are one of the greatest guitarists ever. As we go into this breakdown of this song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. You know, one of the many things that I've come to appreciate about Zenni is how they've almost become a part of my personality. It makes sense since I've designed them. You can have the same experience. You just go to Zenni.com. You can search by color, shape, and style. Create them, put anything you want on the side, make them your very own. Check it out at Zenni.com. So Jimi Hendrix was a huge fan of Bob Dylan. Dylan's music spoke to him like no other.
How does it feel?
I mean, at this point in his career, Jimi Hendrix was a bit insecure about his songwriting, but he found Bob Dylan's lyrics liberating and motivational. When he read the lyrics to All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix felt a strong kinship to those words, as if he wrote them himself. He was compelled to create a version of Watchtower that reflected the intense impact that this song had on him emotionally.
Drink my wine, plowman dig my earth.
So it was on January 21st, 1968 at the Olympic Studios in London where the Jimi Hendrix Experience began the sessions to transform Bob Dylan's masterpiece of understatement into an epic powerhouse of rock. According to engineer Andy Johns, Hendrix had been given a tape of Dylan's recording by publicist Michael Goldstein, who worked for Dylan's manager Albert Grossman. Andy said, Jimmy walked in with these Dylan tapes and we all heard them for the first time in the studio. In addition to Jimmy's brilliance, the recording of All Along the Watchtower by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, that was a star-studded affair. In 1967, Hendrix had been working sporadically with members of the band Traffic during the recording of the Electric Ladyland LP. Traffic guitarist Dave Mason met Hendrix at a semi-private nightclub in London. I guess Jimmy was sitting alone having a drink, and Dave Mason decided to walk over to his table, introduce himself, and chat with him about music. The two had a lot in common, and the chance conversation resulted in Hendrix asking Mason to play rhythm guitar on his version of All Along the Watchtower on a 12-string acoustic guitar That made a big difference in making the track, so much more rich and distinctive, really. According to Hendrix's trusty engineer, Eddie Kramer, Jimmy cut multiple takes on the first day of recording, shouting chord changes out to Dave Mason as they were moving along. That would have been a sight to see. I guess halfway through that session, bass player Noel Redding became really dissatisfied with the proceedings and he left. Mason then assumed bass duties until Jimi Hendrix himself ultimately took over. Eddie Kramer actually confirmed that the final bass part was in fact played by Jimi Hendrix. Also, we can't forget about Rolling Stones founder Brian Jones. He played various percussion instruments on that track. In fact, the thwack that we hear at the end of each bar in the intro, that's Jones playing an instrument called a vibra slap that he smacked on the fourth beat 4 of every bar. Jones, who was a good friend of Jimmy's, was actually in such terrible shape at that time, he could barely stand upright during the session. He originally recorded a piano part for All Along the Watchtower that was later mixed out in favor of the percussion sounds. All Along the Watchtower is actually deceptively simple for such a magnificent track. I mean, it's arranged with a single set of chord changes that repeat over the 3 verses. Jimmy executes multiple guitar solos, and each one has a different sound and level of intensity. His gifted ability to produce unique tones and his inventive use of delayed reverb give each solo really a dark, mysterious distinction. The first solo for the intro is similar to the guitar fills between the verses. The next round of solos in the bridge are extremely cool, multi-dimensional. The midsection begins by following the same line, and then it bends with a psychedelic slide riff. And then Hendrix shifts the guitar lead to a wah pedal that pans left to right. In the breakdown, Jimmy delivers a more aggressive pattern with a whirling lead riff layered over the increasing tempo of the Mitch Mitchell drums and the tambourine. Plus, there is a significant instrumental change from the 12-string acoustic to a 6-string, which helps give the track a euphoric climax. That mind-blowing first 12 seconds of the song, it just floods your engine. It's just sensational. The production of the Jimi Hendrix version of All Along the Watchtower, that started as a collaboration between Hendrix and his manager, Chas Chandler. But make no mistake about it, Jimi Hendrix was running the show.
Here I come, baby. Coming to get you.
Chandler actually quit because he couldn't stand Jimmy's unorthodox studio habits and because it was taking so long to get anything done. It took dozens of guitar overdubs to complete the song, which was far different from the timely manner to finish the previous Hendrix albums. But, Jimmy wanted it to feel exactly right. And as it was, Jimmy wasn't completely happy with the track until, as I understand it, the 27th take. Then it was mastered for eternal domination.
All along the Watchtower.
Considering how timeless Hendrix's version of All Along the Watchtower truly is, the painstaking process to complete the song was worth all the frustration that it caused for the production crew. Dylan's original All Along the Watchtower, that was released as a single from the John Wesley Harding album in late 1968. It actually failed to chart, though. Conversely, the reimagined version by the Jimi Hendrix Experience that was released 2 months before Dylan's single dropped, that was a number 5 smash in the UK. That was Jimmy's second highest charting single in Britain. Next to Purple Haze, that went to number 3. And it was the first stereo-only single to break the top 5 in that country, actually. Now, if you can believe this, All Along the Watchtower was the biggest hit that Jimi Hendrix ever had in America. It went to number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. I think we're a little behind the times there.
None will level on the mind.
Many music critics and fan sites, including Planet Rock in the UK, have dubbed Hendrix' reworking of All Along the Watchtower as the greatest cover ever made. Now, when Dylan heard Hendrix's interpretation of his song, it overwhelmed him. So Bob Dylan, he already had great respect for Jimmy's talent, but his inspired take on All Along the Watchtower gave him a new appreciation for Jimmy's ability to find elements inside a song and vigorously develop them. Dylan would say he found things that other people wouldn't think of. Dylan liked Hendrix' modified version so much that he took license from that cover, his cover. Ever since Hendrix' death in 1970, Dylan performs All Along the Watchtower in his live shows more like the Jimi Hendrix experience than in his original style, replacing the harmonica parts with a guitar and speeding up the tempo. When he performs All Along the Watchtower in concert, Bob Dylan approaches it as a tribute to the legendary icon. In addition to the Jimi Hendrix experience's a transcendent adaptation, All Along the Watchtower, it's been notably covered by so many greats. U2, Eric Clapton, Pearl Jam, Lenny Kravitz, Grateful Dead, Neil Young, John Mayer. Of course, Dave Matthews Band has a great version.
The real guitar, 3 chords, and the truth. There must be some way out of here.
And who can forget the way that it was used in Forrest Gump? I mean, it was perfectly placed in that scene. I remember I used to argue with my dad about whose version was better. You gotta understand, my dad was a bona fide Dylan disciple. I didn't think it was even debatable, really. I mean, Hendrix made the song all his own. However, my dad would always argue that Dylan wrote it, created it from scratch. I would argue that it was more like a true collaboration since Dylan took elements of Hendrix' take when he would perform it live after that. My dad was right, though. I mean, Bob Dylan was such a songwriting genius, with Watchtower being a great example of his ability.
Among us who feel that life is but a joke.
Dylan would actually say in an early interview about the song back in the 60s, "I haven't fulfilled the balladeer's job. A balladeer can sit down and sing 3 songs for an hour and a half. It can all unfold to you. These melodies on John Wesley Harding lack this traditional sense of time. As with the third verse of The Wicked Messenger, which opens it up, and then the time schedule takes a jump, and soon the song becomes wider.
The leaves began to falling and the seas began to part.
Same thing is true of the song All Along the Watchtower, which opens up in a slightly different way, in a stranger way.
There must be some way out of here.
For we have the cycle of events working in a rather reverse order." End of quote.
Falsely now, the hour is getting late.
Watchtower is really a great example of Bob Dylan's keen ability of messing with chronological time. I remember I read somewhere a Dylan expert who pointed out about the song. At the conclusion of the last verse, it's as if the song strangely begins at last, and as if the myth began again. Like Dylan author Clinton Highland points out, in Watchtower, Dylan sets the listener up for an epic ballad with the first 2 verses, but then after a brief instrumental passage, the singer cuts to the end of the song, leaving the listener to fill in his or her own doom-laden blanks.
Approaching, the wind began to howl.
I mean, Bob Dylan was able to fool most people with this song because if you think about it, the title really makes no sense. It doesn't have to, it's rock and roll, but a watchtower is not a road or a wall, and you can't go along it. This is where Hendrix comes in, though. He makes us forget about this entirely with his gritty, electric extravaganza of guitar and voice. I mean, creating infinite worlds with his playing. His mind-expanding approach to a Dylan composition is sensational. All Along the Watchtower is undoubtedly a defining standard of the 1960s. It's both a sign and a song of the times.
All along the Watchtower.
Leave us a comment about this incredible standard of the times. What is your favorite version? Share your memories below. Memories of Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan. Let's have a discussion about that. How did you discover Hendrix or Dylan? Let us know. If you like our content, we would love to have you be a part of this channel. Just subscribe below. Make sure to click the bell so you never miss out. Look us up on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. That's the goal. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.